Hey guys, welcome to Reddit Brew. Today, I will be reading from the r/EntitledPeople subreddit, so let's jump into it. My neighbor had two entitled teenagers that liked to steal and destroy my property. This happened in early 2000s. I was living the single mom life with my 3 older kids. I was working the full-time evening shift, and my best friend would keep the kids for me. During the day, when I wasn't sleeping, I would do household work while the kids were at school. During this time, it was early fall, and still mowing weather. I would always fill my lawnmower up with a 3-gallon gas can that I would keep full under my porch. My neighbors had 2 teens, a boy and a girl, that liked to bully the smaller kids in my neighborhood. They were absolute hellions. I chased them out of my yard a few times when I'd catch them trying to get in my storage shed. Their dad got them a 4-wheeler that they would constantly be on. After they got it, my gas can would mysteriously go empty every time I went to refuel. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what was happening to it. I knew it was those kids stealing my gas for their 4-wheeler, and enough was enough. I went out and purchased an identical gas can, filled it with about 2.5 gallons of water, then added a half gallon of gas. You know, to give it the fuel smell still. I locked the real one away, put the bogus can under my porch, then waited. Within a couple of days, wouldn't you know, the little brats were throwing a massive fit because their 4-wheeler was toast. Sucks to suck. A month-ish passes and Halloween arrives. As I said, these little monsters enjoyed destroying other people's property. One of their favorite pastimes was tearing up Halloween decorations and smashing pumpkins. That year, I bought close to 20 pumpkins, only for them to get smashed on the street in front of my house. My kids were devastated. The monsters also loved tearing up the stuffed scarecrow that was on the next door neighbor's porch. So with that, an idea sprung into my mind. I managed to get together some old worn overalls, a straw hat, and a ratty-looking long-sleeve button-up shirt. I stuffed it and sat it out on my porch on Halloween day. I had asked my bestie to take my kids trick-or-treating because I had a treat planned for the teen monsters and their friends. I waited till dark, shut off the porch light, and brought in the decoy scarecrow. I put on the clothes and hat, painted my face, and went back outside in the chair with a huge bowl of candy and a sign saying, "Take one, please." I had a few little Supermans, princesses, ghosts, and clowns come up. And yes, they would grab more than one candy, but not overly much. About half hour into my evening, I heard the teen wolves coming up the road. They immediately started smashing more pumpkins and yanking down decorations. 3 of them run onto my porch, one grabbing the bowl as the other 2 went to grab poor Miss Scarecrow. Only Miss Scarecrow, me, suddenly sat up with the deepest, harshest, loudest growl and grabbed the boys closest to me. I've never seen people actually fly before, but they were screaming like nobody's business, running down the street. Amazingly, a cop pulls up less than a minute later, says he had been getting complaints about these kids and was trying to catch them in the act. So, he was camped down the road watching them. He'd seen the entire exchange on my porch and could not stop laughing. I'm not sure what ended up happening with the teens, but I'm sure they were likely given a fine for destroying property. I personally didn't have much problem with them after that, and they ended up moving a few months or so later after the boy got arrested for breaking into someone's house up the street. Amazing. I love when bullies get their rightful karma. There's actually 2 satisfying bully comeuppance stories in the comments on this post, so I'm going to read those for you guys as well. This reminds me of when I was in high school. The people living a few houses down were some pieces of trash. Kid was a few years older than me and would usually bully the other kids out of their bicycles, skateboards, etc., and then trash it. One day, he tried taking my almost new MTB that I got for my birthday. I resisted, and the kid gave me a few slaps and punches. I had a bleeding nose, blue eye, and a torn lip. My dad was pissed. He went over to have a discussion. They weren't having it, and the father punched my dad. We went to the police, opened a case of assault for both accounts. The kid was 17, so he was in deep shit. I was 13. The dad got arrested at his job and was fired consequently. He spent the weekend in holding because there was no judge to grant bail. Kid also got arrested, but was released because he was a minor. The dad got bail on Monday, and both were warned to stay away from us. Before lunch on Monday, the dad was at our door banging and screaming. Cops were called, and a harassment charge was added to the assault. Day in court came a few weeks later. Kid got sent to a school for troubled teens, effectively a jail for teen boys. It was not his first time that he got in trouble for assault, and the dad was facing jail time unless some agreement could be made. My dad agreed to settle. He get paid for damage and medical costs, about a $5,000 equivalent, and a suspended sentence because he had a wife and another kid. The guy had to sell his truck to pay for the settlement as he was out of a job. His wife packed up and took the other kid and left the same day before court. We only found out about this later. We saw him walking a few times after that, and he would always stare daggers at us. He also got evicted and his house sold on a bank repo auction a few months later. Not sure what happened to the kid that assaulted me, but I never saw him again. Even tried looking for him on Facebook, but it's like he vanished. Everyone that I asked that was with us at school remembers him, but no one knows what happened to him or where he is. I kind of feel bad thinking back on it now, but some people are just born and brought up to be assholes. Back in, about 1988, I was 10 and was living in a decent-sized apartment complex. Guy moved into the neighborhood with his two boys, Chris and Jonathan, both redheads with tempers to match. They started bullying all the neighborhood kids. I was one of the few who resisted, and so they singled me out for the brunt of the bullying. After a couple months of this, my mom went to their dad to have a talk about it, and the dad's response was, "Boys will be boys," and he just shrugged it off. It came to a head one day when I had enough. I fought back. I punched and dazed Chris, who sat down trying to gather himself, hit Jonathan with a big stick and beat him into submission, turned back to Chris and started wailing on him. His face was a bloody mess when I was done. Got up and went home. Told my mom, who held me while I cried, because I hated doing that. Their dad came by later, pounding on the door, threatening police, and suing. My mom just shrugged her shoulders and said, "Boys will be boys." Jonathan recovered without much damage, but Chris's nose was smashed and he lost most of his teeth. He was in the hospital for weeks. You know, I am not an advocate for violence, make love, not war, but when I read about sadistic people getting their asses handed to them, it just makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. Even though when these types of people do get beat up, it usually doesn't teach them anything, because people like this usually live their whole lives being pieces of trash. But the few weeks of pain they have to endure when they do get beat up is still enjoyable nonetheless. I love comeuppance. But anyways, that is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed this Entitled People story with the 2 mini stories. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!